Believe it or not, you are now looking at the heart of Cupid's poison, the passion cycle. Because although orgasm feels like it happens only in your genitals, you wouldn't feel the climax itself without specific neurochemical events between your ears. In fact, scientists have triggered orgasms with electrodes in the brain and in the spine without touching any genitals. Now, instead of an electrode, your body uses a spike of neurochemicals in that old part of the brain we saw earlier. That's what triggers the sensation of orgasm. And you can see it pictured there on the left side of the screen. What goes up at the moment of orgasm must come down. Unfortunately, it doesn't just return to equilibrium right away. And that's why you have that rocky-looking recovery cycle on the right side of the screen. Although scientists aren't generally acknowledging that there is a post-orgasmic recovery period, evidence of it has already been unearthed by researchers eager to develop sexual enhancement drugs. Strange as it seems, their research suggests that this passion cycle takes about 2 weeks to return to pre-orgasm balance. During this recovery phase, lovers may feel uncharacteristically needy, irritable, anxious, depleted, or desperate for another orgasm, because that will instantly relieve all those other symptoms. Of course, it will also put you back at the beginning of the cycle, and you'll have to go through the whole thing again. You can think of this recovery period as a mild drug withdrawal period, because neurochemically it has some similarities. However, lovers don't realize that they're temporarily off balance during this recovery period. In fact, if they feel cranky, they usually think their partner is the cause of their crankiness. And that's because these feelings, which are subconscious usually, don't seem to be connected to anything that we've done ourselves, and so they get projected outward onto those around us, and they seem to be the ones annoying us. This poison is a recurring trigger for disharmony and compulsive behavior, as we'll see later, and it is built right into our romantic relationships. That is what makes sexual relationships different from other relationships. Of course, this uncomfortable recovery phase is nearly invisible to sexually active adults. It certainly was to me and my husband, until we began paying attention. For one thing, our mating neurochemistry fools us into believing that all our problems are due to needing more orgasm. And many of us, especially any of us who are not getting enough sex or intimacy, seldom look further for an explanation of our distress. In fact, even after we find a lover and can have as much sex as we want to, we still try to resolve our post-orgasmic uneasiness with more orgasm. And of course, if a partner isn't enthusiastic, there's always the internet. Unfortunately, more orgasm just pushes us further towards sexual satiety and uncomfortable withdrawal and habituation. You have to hand it to those genes of ours. It's an efficient way of making sure we engage in as much fertilization-driven sex as possible before we lose our desire to remain sexually exclusive with a particular mate. The bottom line is that the mating program driving our sexual appetite is doing two things we don't usually acknowledge or even realize. It pushes us toward habituation, and it gives us a boost whenever we pursue a novel partner, even a two-dimensional one, because you'll start to feel that rise when you look at a novel partner that you see on the left side of the screen, and instantly you'll feel better. So it feels like you're on the right track. This can create enormous inner conflict if you're trying to stay in love with someone. All of this means that the current emphasis on fixing marital dissatisfaction by making partners more orgasmic may actually increase the emotional friction between them over time. There's also the risk that someone will be made to feel there's something wrong with them if they don't orgasm easily, when they could just be ahead of the rest of us in longing for a more soothing kind of satisfaction. Sure, an orgasm feels great in the short run. No argument there. In fact, it feels like the solution to all of your problems, even problems you didn't know you had. But if it sets off 2 weeks of mysterious mood swings in both partners that distort their perception of each other, then it's not helping to keep them in love. It's just speeding their natural tendency to get fed up with each other. The confusing part is that intimacy itself, which includes not only intercourse but other kinds of activities, is powerful relationship glue. So intercourse itself is great. It's sexual satiety, that feeling of I'm done, that's the trigger for habituation. Intimacy is actually the key to the other mammalian program that heavily influences our romances. That would be our bonding program. It's the one that makes us want to walk down the aisle in the first place, and we're going to look at it next. Pair bonding is unique to a mere handful of mammals, including humans. We pair bonders evolved to get a buzz not just from sex, but also from romantic companionship. The other 97% of mammal species are happily promiscuous. Romeo and Juliet would be no more interesting to them than a display of antique farm tools. They don't need to pair up because mom and her mammaries can handle the relatively brief parenting needed to launch offspring into adulthood. So why do some mammals pair bond? Because their infants survive better with two caregivers. We humans, for example, do better with two because our skulls are so big that we have to be born prematurely. We're far more helpless than most mammals at birth, even other primates, and we stay that way for a long time. We need our parents to fall in love, at least for long enough for them both to fall in love with us. That way, Dad will be more likely to help raise us too. The mammalian bonding program didn't initially evolve to make possible Romeo and Juliet scenarios. It evolved to bond infants with their caregivers. The rare mammals like us who pair bond with their mates adapted this underlying bonding program to help team up for a while. This is important information because it works on the same signals that infant caregiver bonds do. So in human mates, these signals would look like activities such as gazing into each other's eyes, hugging, kissing, nurturing touch, generous pampering, and wordless sounds of delight, just to name a few. They may sound like foreplay, but they're not as effective as bonding behaviors when you use them to push toward a goal. However, when you use them simply to make the other person feel loved, they are soothing to both giver and receiver. They also relax our natural defensiveness. That's what makes it possible for us to bond. Lovers who try them find they make each other look more and more adorable too, at least in their eyes. These bonding behaviors are also good for us. Because of the neurochemical rewards we get from generous touch and close, trusted companionship, we actually live longer, healthier, more relaxed lives when in relationship, provided it's harmonious. And that's true even if we don't have kids. As you can probably see, conscious use of these bonding cues provides a strategy to help counter our mating program.